Every day, we are learning more about Thomas Crooks, the attempted assassin of Trump and the person who murdered a supporter of Trump's. And the details are becoming more and more shocking and disturbing. And I have a lot to go through with you. First, I want to play some reporting. Unfortunately, it is from Fox News, but this is accurate reporting being substantiated elsewhere, and it talks about how he may have been planning something bigger based on what he had on him. We'll also learn about the fact that his father called the police, warning that Thomas Crooks was gone and he didn't know why. We'll look at how this was premeditated, what the preparations were, and all of it in this segment. Just disturbing stuff, but here it is.
We're now learning new details about the shooter and his parents' actions just hours before the Trump assassination attempt. Let's go to CB Cotton, who is live in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the latest details from the investigation. CB.
Hi, Emily. Well, as federal agencies and congressional committees demand answers, we're learning the shooter's parents called law enforcement on the day of the rally to say they couldn't find their son. We know they're cooperating with law enforcement, and this comes as a new photograph obtained by local station WPXI shows a detonator device found next to Thomas Matthew Crooks' body after the attempted assassination. Crooks had explosives inside his car, found parked near the rally, and bomb-making materials inside his home. The alarming photo raises questions about whether Crooks had other plans as he opened fire. Less than 200 yards away from the rally stage, while positioned on a rooftop, which the Secret Service says was within the perimeter delegated to local law enforcement. A federal source told me there was a local law enforcement presence inside the building the shooter was on top of, echoing what the Secret Service director stated during an ABC News interview. But now there are conflicting reports from local media who cite sources that say local officers were only positioned inside a nearby building. We know from federal sources Crooks was spotted acting suspicious before the rally, and several photos, including this one, were captured and exchanged among officers during about a 30-minute window before the gunfire.
It is stunning how early they were suspicious of the actions of Thomas Crooks, and that didn't lead to him being stopped. Because while, yes, he didn't kill Trump, and that is good, someone died because of a mess up with security, because of Thomas Crooks, obviously, primarily. But then in terms of potential prevention, there had to be a mess up here, because how much law enforcement presence there is at an event like this, as I've been saying, and we were there, you could see it. The fact that a former president is speaking, you would think that a suspicious person who was seen long before the shooting, who before a little bit more, close to the shooting, before you had spectators saying, look, he's up on the roof with a gun. At one point, you had, and the timeline will be broken down in some scene and reporting that I'm going to show you in a second here, but an officer climbing up the ladder, Thomas Crooks points the gun at him, and the officer goes back down the ladder, reportedly. And how still he was able to get shots off is baffling. I do want to say, because I've been asking that question a lot, horrible security lapses, mistakes, they happen. So let's not jump, as many people are doing, to these crazy conspiracy theories. Let's go based on the facts. And right now, we want the investigation to get concluded into Crooks and also the handling of him. But it still can be pointed out that clearly something went wrong here. Washington Post reports local police alerted the Secret Service before former President Donald Trump's rally Saturday that they lacked the resources to station a patrol car outside a key building where a gunman later positioned himself and shot at Trump, according to local and federal law enforcement. You have the district attorney in Butler County saying, where the Trump rally took place, said the Secret Service was informed that the local police department did not have manpower to assist with securing that building. Stunning. And then you have this CNN reporting
Into the shooter as well. CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller is with us now. Great to see you this morning, John.
You too.
What are you learning? What's the latest here?
So the investigation moves forward a little bit every day. Let's kind of go through where they are as of right now. Interesting facts. The suspect late last week told his employers at the assisted care place where he works as a dietary specialist, I need Saturday off.
Premeditation.
That's right. I have something to do that day, but I'll be in on Sunday. I don't know if that was just to cover, not take attention away from that, I'll be in on Sunday, or now we look at mindset, did he expect to survive and escape? The other question that was swirling around for so long, and we've all heard this, even on our own air, is how did he get on that rooftop? We know he purchased a 5-foot ladder that morning, Saturday, at 9 a.m. at Home Depot near his house. That ladder has never been found to date, but the investigation has developed that he climbed up onto an air conditioner handler, and you can see that they're all around these buildings, and then hoisted himself onto a very low roof that's in the center of that complex, almost kind of in a courtyard, which would have been away from the view of a lot of people. Before that, and this is interesting, he had already attracted the attention of security people at the screening area for the rally. He had been walking by the magnetometers with a rangefinder in his hand. Now, a rangefinder is something that shooters use to measure the distance in long shots. Golfers use them too. Looks like a small pair of binoculars, but if you're a police officer or someone who knows about firearms, you'll know what that is when you see it. He was carrying it in his hand and kind of circling around the mag area. There's conflicting information as to whether he went through the mags, which means he was unarmed, but he had this in his hand, and had to go through screening, or whether he just stayed outside, but they started looking at him. But then he leaves the area and, goes out of view from that inner perimeter. So that is just interesting that he was already on the radar a little bit, which happens often in these things. They look at somebody, then they leave the secure area. The rangefinder comes up again, though, because as he gets to that roof, they see him looking through the rangefinder, and one sniper team is looking at him, looking at them through the rangefinder. But this all now starts to happen very quickly, because now a police officer's coming up the ladder behind him. We know about that confrontation.
And I'll stop it there. But I think part of it is that at these sorts of events, which maybe is justification too. I've been saying, I don't think they need more Secret Service resources based on how much security presence is there when we go. And this just seems like someone made a mistake, didn't do their job. But maybe they do need more Secret Service, and they shouldn't rely on local police, because local police probably isn't trained the same in Butler, Pennsylvania, who knows how prepared they are to handle a situation like this. Because you would think this would not be allowed to happen. Whenever you picture Secret Service, you sort of assume, like we've joked before when we're walking around at a rally, it's interesting that everything we're doing and the interviews and all that, surely we're being watched, right? Like we're all being watched because it would be such high technological monitoring. But then this happens and it calls that into question for certain. So maybe we do need more resources allocated, even though the on paper funding seems like plenty. This is clearly something that raises alarms. Again, doesn't justify conspiracy theories, as salacious as those often are. And it's a good time for us to practice being level-headed, following the facts, and not jumping to conclusions. We've been talking about not jumping to conclusions quite a bit when it comes to the motives, because with a prominent political figure like Trump, everyone's going to say, oh, it had to be someone inspired by rhetoric coming from the opposite side. But so far, that doesn't line up with this guy, Thomas Crooks, which is why I've been begging MAGA to calm down a little bit in their just insane allegations about how this is Biden's fault or this is left-wing media's fault, when this is a registered Republican. This is someone who, actually, I have funnily enough, from Walter Masterson, a little TikTok that sums it up nicely.
So a Republican gets shot by a registered Republican using a gun that Democrats tried to ban, and somehow it's the Democrats' fault?
And someone who's a gun enthusiast, a gun, as he mentioned, that we want to ban, and being an AR-15, and someone who had Trump signs in his yard, who the one tie to the left wing was a donation that very likely could have been a different Thomas Crooks, who you can find, who also lives in Pennsylvania, and his age would make a little bit more sense as to why he was donating back then when Thomas Crooks would have been 17. So don't jump to conclusions on that. And a similar thing with not jumping to conclusions on the reason this even happened. And that means not jumping to conspiracy theories, as many people are doing. But then it's frightening to consider the explosives in the car and a detonator. Was he going to, as people were panicking and running away, trying to create another terrorist attack that would cause even more suffering? He thought, it seems, that he was going to get out of that situation and move on to another, not realizing how quickly he'd be shot. And all of it's just really disturbing. And I'll continue bringing this information to you as we get it. The CNN correspondent said every day we're learning more, which is the case. So if you've heard a detail as you're watching this that you think I'm getting to and I haven't gotten to, it's probably because it just happened, and I'll do it in the next update. But stunning, for sure. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments.